Hi everyone, welcome into Life and Law with Debora Diaz, and this is Debora Diaz.
Good afternoon, thanks for joining us.
That's right, and I'm excited to be here with you. I'm Barbara Marville Kelly, thank you so much. If you missed our show last week, we want to share and recap what we were talking about. It was some very serious stuff, and we were talking about sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, and bullying. And since then, Debora and I always have a rapport and talking outside of the realm of the show because there's so much going on in the news, there's so much going on in the neighborhood. Share with us what you picked up on.
People are talking about bullying. The word is getting out that there are recourses. I've been seeing in a lot of the social media groups that I belong to, of parents addressing the issues of bullying. And I guess what I want to reiterate is that this is not a do-it-alone issue. You need help. Go to the sites that we recommended. Go to the schools. Talk to the administrators there. Don't try to take it in your own hands. Don't confront the parents on your own by yourself. That can just lead to some disaster. People's feelings are escalated. People don't like to be accused of things. No one wants to be told their child is doing anything that might not be right.
Right.
So really follow the steps so that you're not getting a situation that's already troublesome more inflamed. So what we're trying to say is, look, the resources, reach out to the school. We do have an anti-bullying statute in the state of Florida, so there is enforcement mechanism. But again, don't take it into you can be forceful as a parent, but what I'm saying is don't do confrontations. You don't need to be confronting people in the school pickup line because tempers it could lead to not so nice things happening.
And that just makes sense kind of advice, wouldn't you think? But I tell you, bullying is becoming almost epidemic.
We are hearing about it every week, if not every day. Something is happening.
Exactly.
And the other thing that we had comments is people didn't realize the depth and the of it and how deep it goes. Starting in preschool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that the behaviors, the bullying behavior, and the victim can start in preschool.
Well, and I've had someone very near and dear to me that I learned that happened to. And the first thing that comes to your mind is, well, what happened and who did what and how can this happen, who's supervising and things like that. So I'm guessing that being very, very proactive with the school, like you said.
Asking the questions
And finding out. Exactly.
And keeping a paper trail. Mm-hmm. Get it in writing. I mean, there is that saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but you do have to follow. You have to follow up.
Exactly. And that is really good advice about not taking things into your own hands, because that just doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever, because then those that are taking it in their own hands, like you say, it just is, it's adding fuel to the fire.
There's been cases, I mean, it can escalate into where there's weapons used and deaths occur because the parents were confronting regarding the bullying. So really need to follow the proper channels.
Yeah, kind of think before you start jumping in there, because the first thing we want to do is protect our children.
We have the next thing, we want to protect the children, our loved ones, and so it is a natural reaction, but again, it also brings with it all the emotional and highly charged feelings that you're going to then can get into a confrontation.
That's very true, and sometimes it's really hard to control the feelings, when you hear that your son or daughter is being bullied and being treated unfairly and all that. What we're going to be talking about today, though, is additional, I tell you, each show kind of overlaps with one another, doesn't it,
yes.
Debora? And we were talking about that earlier today, but today we're going to be talking about equitable distribution. I managed to get that out one time, one try. Then we're also going to be talking about prenups, prenuptial and postnuptial. We're going to talk about that. And then, do you have any idea what just adulting is? I know. I was thinking the same thing. Is that a legal term or what? Debora's going to share this with you, and it's going to be pretty eye-opening for everybody. So stay right with us. So where would you like to get started, my dear?
Well, I had a lot of questions. Everybody wants to know, they hear the terms equitable distribution. What is it? And equitable distribution is the division of property upon a divorce. And Florida is what's called an equitable distribution state, which means everything that's acquired during the marriage, from the date of the marriage, and I always draw a timeline when I'm explaining this to my clients. From the date of the marriage to the date of the filing, you have your timeline. Everything acquired, unless you've contracted in some way out of it, is marital property. And that means good and bad. So it's mortgages, it's car loans, it's any other kind of debt, it's lottery winnings, it's other prize money, it's wages, earnings, is marital, subject to this division in the event of a divorce. And that's part of the determination is sometimes is there some premarital, before the marriage? Is there something that was acquired before the marriage that the one party did not intend to be part of the marriage? And the court can look at that, but as you can imagine, that can be a lot of litigation trying to prove what's premarital. Because when people get married, you are gifting, you're tending to make a gift. One of the common things that happens is that people get married, may reside together before they're married, and they buy a piece of property.
Oh.
And then they get married. So they might have only lived there a short period of time, or maybe one of the persons put a large down payment down and one didn't. And then maybe nothing is ever done possibly with the deed. That does not mean that now we say we have a 10-year marriage that the spouse that's not on the deed doesn't have a right to it, because that person does. Because the income for the marriage, the assumption is, went to help pay the mortgage. So the income is marital. So the income went to pay down a mortgage. So maybe not the whole house, so we look at the value of the house, and this is, what attorneys do in our presentation and explaining to clients and the court is we might look at we'll look at the period of time that the property was before the marriage, then what happened during the marriage, and then you come up with, well, how much is premarital, how much is marital? And marital means it's subject to the division. And the court will look at, the goal is that each party should end up with half of the assets and half of the debt.
That's what the goal.
But in trying to maintain, sometimes it might be worth, a house for instance, if you have minor children, maybe it's not feasible to divide the house at the time of the divorce. It might have to, because you have children under 18, if the parties can't agree, the court may allow one spouse to reside there with the children and not divide up any equity until the children turn 18, so that the children have stability. So that's one thing that a court can do. I really want to stress on the debt part, because people don't realize the ramifications of acquiring debt during marriage. It is marital. Many times I'm having a conversation and people say to me, this is in my husband's name, or this is in my wife's name, or I got student loans, they're married. I have $100,000 or $50,000 in student loans. That's going to be, I'm asking me, am I responsible for that, one spouse? And I'm like, well, if it's acquired during the marriage, student loans are marital. People are sometimes shocked to hear that they are subject to equitable distribution. Yes, they might be in one person's name, but the court has the powers to say, okay, you've got $50,000 in debt, husband paid 25, wife paid 25, and either through some other division make sure that happens, or through some kind of, the order of the court will be what's enforceable. So maybe the party might not pay what they're supposed to, then we would have to go through some contempt proceedings to enforce the final judgment. But
Understood.
everything acquired, and I can't say it enough, so if I sound like a broken record, I am, because I'm having this conversation every week. People don't understand that everything that acquired during the marriage, unless there's other things that have been contracted out, and we'll get to that, is marital, both good and bad. So it's really, really important to understand what you've acquired during the marriage and understand what the debts are, so that you know what you potentially could be liable for.
Excellent points, and you can't say that too much, about the division and equitable distribution, because sometimes we don't think of these things when we're in love, and we can't wait to get married, and some of these things we don't think about, and if we're marrying someone that's been married before, I mean, it can just turn into be a crazy life, right?
Yeah.
So this is good.
Yes.
This is why it's exciting to share all these different points that Debora is bringing out. We're already time to take a break.
Okay.
So we're going to do that. When we come back, we have more great information, some really, really good eye openers. So stay with us.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Hi everyone, welcome back into Life and Law with Debora Diaz. Hopefully you are enjoying the tidbits of information that Debora is sharing with you. It's always enlightening to hear you talk about things. Every time I get in conversation with you, I'm learning something. And this is really contributory to our life experience so that we know better next time, right?
We can keep going on and on. There's
I know,
always
I know. And Debora was saying earlier about how things overlap with the talking points that she brings up. So in the first segment, we were talking about equitable distribution. And already I'm learning stuff just from today's show.
So I want to add some stuff to that.
Yes.
So the court can make an unequal division, has the power to do that, and that space can be based on the overall economic circumstances of the parties, the length of the marriage, the amount of debt that there is in the marriage. Maybe one party is going to not take all the debt or take less of it. So although we start off with the premise of 50-50, the court does have the authority to do it slightly different or in different ways based on the evidence that's presented in the case.
Sure.
So, but we do want to say, but it's a good thought to keep in mind that it's really what you're looking at is half of what you own can belong to someone else.
Okay, all right.
But, and it's also important when we talked about, I wanted to add the issue about the tax issue because we're just coming off a tax season.
Yes.
And it's important for when you're submitting your returns as spouses to understand that if you both are signing, you both are liable on those returns. So that's why, another reason why it's important to understand what the assets, what the debt is, and what any taxes are that are owed, because you don't want to find out later on that there was some income that you didn't know about or liabilities that you didn't know about. It's a tax liability that you will be held responsible for. Okay, there's very few, we won't get into that whole subject, but there is, very few reasons where a spouse, there is a defense called innocent spouse relief, but that's somebody that absolutely had no knowledge whatsoever, and that's a really, hard road to go down.
I guess so.
So you need to know about it. So we talked about equitable distribution and the division. So how can you? So what are some of the things you can do? And some of the things you can do. This is not. I don't advocate this. This is educating. People have knowledge. Knowledge is power. One of the things you can do is enter into a prenuptial agreement. It's a kind, and you've heard we call them antenuptial agreements, prenuptial agreements. They're called a marital settlement agreement after the marriage, a postnuptial agreement. People many times will get married and then after will sign a postnuptial agreement. And it's a contract. It's basically, those are all the different terms, but it's a contract between the parties. Okay?
I see.
Which defines how they are going to acquire their assets, how they're going to divide their assets, how they're going to treat assets that they had prior to the marriage, how they're going to treat assets that they accumulate during the marriage, and addressing whether there'll be gifts during the marriage and how that would be handled, how inheritances are handled, how businesses are handled. So it addresses, it can address everything in that contract. Many times we're talking, extensive assets you want to protect. A lot of times in a second marriage, these are where a lot of people feel the need to do a prenuptial agreement. It's a second marriage. There might be minor children or not minor children, but they want to protect. When people accumulate assets, they want to leave something, maybe, to their children. So this is one way to do it, is they're protecting those assets. They also want to protect a business. A lot of times there's a lot of closely held businesses, and what I'm talking, when I say that, I mean businesses that aren't traded on the stock exchange, but they're just family-owned business. Business that's been in for years, and so it might be parents, siblings, and then we have new spouse comes in. Okay.
Yes.
So if we don't have a premarital agreement, then as whatever that value of the business is growing and accumulating during, let's say, John Doe's marriage, to Jane Doe.
Yeah.
And they get a divorce. Jane has a claim for a portion of that business, that closely held business, that private business. Even though, the family are to be saying, it's a family business, that's true. But if the husband had been working in the business, that's income. He used marital efforts, marital energy that was happening during the marriage. He used that. So wife has an interest in that business. So the business can become part of the divorce litigation. So imagine that. All the records and the tax records and the earnings would be subject to discovery, could be subject to discovery in a divorce case. So that's a reason why you'd have a premarital agreement.
On the prenuptial, so is that where, like, okay, so you're dating somebody, you're going with, and you're proposed to, you decide you're getting married and everything. How do you ask your future fiance, is there something you need to tell me, like debts that I need to be aware of? How do you do this?
That's the $64,000 question, I think.
But that could be covered in the prenup.
You do, yes. And this is not a last minute thing. This should be part of, this definitely has to be part of your overall relationship with the person.
Of course.
That you're talking about, that you're disclosing. If you have a level of comfortability, then you should be talking about this and knowing the debts. It is not uncommon for people to start asking for credit reports. You don't want to start a marriage saddled with debt already.
Exactly.
I know it doesn't sound romantic, but it's the reality. I say this, and I'm going to say it again. I have seen so many people in my office telling me that they did not know about the debt before the marriage, and then more is accrued, and that you get into this mingling of trying to separate debt, and it becomes a marital fight. So I can't emphasize that enough. So getting back to who else would need it, as I said, second marriages and children. Excuse me. Really, really important as part of a premarital agreement is disclosure, and that's what you're doing, which is you're asking, you're having these. A good prenuptial agreement is going to outline what happens to any property that's acquired during the marriage. It's going to talk about the party's debt, going to deal with business issues, going to deal with what happens if a party gets hurt, deal with a personal injury case, the proceeds. There's a lot of facets of the law that's affected. So it can be a hard subject to talk about, but you've got to get to that level.
Well, while you're explaining this, I'm thinking to myself, this really should be a topic of discussion that will also see how really good this relationship is. I mean, that could be bringing up some red flags.
Finances is probably right there in the top two reasons of why people get divorced. The finances, not knowing about the finances or being stressed about the finances. And so you need to do, it's the reality. We make money, we spend money.
Right.
So disclose it to the partner that you are sharing your life with.
Yes.
And it shouldn't have this onus that it's a bad thing, because it's not.
Right.
I know it doesn't sound romantic, but you still can be romantic. And then if you have this agreement in place, it'll be set. Nothing will happen. Your marriage will last.
Well, exactly.
Or it could last.
I'm thinking it's going to be way less romantic than getting married and then finding out on the honeymoon or afterwards, or right? So I think a lot can be saved. This is really good talk.
Yes. Yeah. So again, what comes part of is the financial disclosure. And we'll talk more about that, because each party will be disclosing their finances before they're entering into this agreement. Okay.
Get it all out on the table.
They're going to complete schedules or financial affidavits. and exchange them
And what if
between the parties.
what if one or the other or both doesn't disclose? Then I'm guessing.
Then there's going to be reasons why if the party that wants to uphold it is the one that didn't disclose, that agreement most likely will not be upheld by the court. Is part of this, unless there's, I don't want to ever say anything as a, maybe the other party signed off not wanting any financial disclosure. But I never advise my clients to do that. That's just not a good idea.
No,
You should
no.
know. Maybe you might only want limited financial disclosure, and I'm talking in the prenuptial, but you should know if you're going to sign this agreement that you're sharing your life with, what the financial ramifications are of signing it.
Right, exactly. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, as you talk, I'm coming up with all these little what-if scenarios, if you will, and I mean, there's a lot of different people out there in this world, right? That maybe might not be making the proper decisions when they're moving forward in their life experience, so to speak. So
we talk about the prenuptial and postnuptial. The difference is that it's after the marriage.
yes,
The parties have been married, maybe they've been married a couple years, maybe everything's fine, They just decide, well, realize maybe we should have something in writing in case something were to happen.
exactly.
And part of that would be because maybe one of the spouses, maybe they realized that they would like to give inheritance money to someone else. And so that's a way, because under Florida law, you can't you can't disinherit your spouse unless there's a written agreement, and that would be the post-nuptial agreement. And they're absolutely post, which means after. So there absolutely has to be full financial disclosure in order for that. And we'll talk about some of the other conditions when we
post.
come back.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So even though everything's fine and maybe they didn't sign a prenuptial, they can go into a post. And I would guess that would probably be good if two people are remarrying and they have each husband and wife have children.
Exactly.
Right. All right, we're going to talk more with Life and Law with Debora Diaz in just a few minutes, so stay right where you are.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Hi everyone, welcome into Life and Law with Debora Diaz. I'm Barbara Marville Kelly, and with me is Debora, really getting into the nitty-gritty of prenuptials and post and all that. So I'm going to just turn over to you because you really have a lot of points to make here in this segment.
So let's talk about what I touched on it a little bit, what can be in it. So owners' rights and responsibilities of property, how the property is going to be used. The other thing that I didn't mention is the amount of spousal support. You can have a definition, you can have a certain amount outlined. This would be in a in a prenuptial agreement. How much alimony if the marriage were to terminate. People can have all kinds of things in there. A lot of times that have, sometimes there's an extinguishing clause. If the marriage lasts 5 years, prenup is revoked. No more prenup. So there can be a lot of things in order to, and as long as it's not in violation of public policy, they will be upheld. Something that you cannot contract away is the amount of child support. So child support cannot be addressed. You can't say father won't pay child support, mother won't pay child support, and you cannot define the amount because the child support belongs to the children, and so as parents you cannot contract that right away. So,
well, that's
and
good.
we want the children to be taken care of. So we're saying that you cannot address that issue in a pre or post-nuptial agreement. As long as they are in writing, that there has been no fraud, duress, or overreaching, all legal terms in the statute, and signed by both parties. We'd like to have them signed at the end, initialed, that they read every single page. They will be upheld, and full financial disclosure. So if you have those certain things, an agreement will be upheld. One of the things not to do is don't sign it 2 days before the wedding.
Yeah, okay? I would guess. I would guess.
That's not. We don't want to go down that road of that there was duress and fraud. Even though it may pass that, you want the person to have a time that you're asking to have the time to reflect. Possibly seek and encourage to seek their legal counsel so that they understand the rights. They need to know what they're signing away also, but with reflection.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about when you said duress. In other words, both parties need to feel comfortable with what they're doing.
Yes, and duress is not, he won't marry me if I don't sign it.
Right.
Okay?
I'm glad you said that.
That is not duress.
No.
That's not duress under the law.
Right.
If it's maybe, some of the examples that the person had no choice, maybe somehow emotionally berated that they had to sign it. Okay,
exactly.
That could be duress. Again,
Okay.
it's all going to be a case specific.
Right.
Okay, but they're really, the bottom line is it's very hard to overturn a validly executed prenuptial agreement.
Okay. That's understood. I get it.
It becomes part of our public policy of freedom to contract.
So what else can be in it? Or did we? What can't be in it?
The child support and anything that would be in violation of a law.
Obviously.
Anything that would be in violation of a law.
And do you get kind of ridiculous requests?
No, No, not ridiculous requests. No.
So everything's
not,
pretty-
Yeah, right. So far.
So far.
So far.
There's always a first
Yeah,
time, right?
yes,
But
yes.
you know, these are things that I guess it's not something that, I mean, I've been married now for so many years, and I wouldn't, you know, some of these things that I didn't think of way back when, and especially when I was married at 19. I mean, that was the last
Who
thing.
thinks of it at 19?
No, I just wanted to get out of the house.
And really, when I'm talking about, is it, 18, 19? No, we're really talking about, when we're talking about, a lot of times, the second marriages.
That's what I'm thinking,
When
too,
you're 18,
yeah.
19, you get married at that age, you're acquiring assets together.
Yeah,
Most likely,
yeah.
either party doesn't have, except if you're talking coming from extreme wealthy family, doesn't have a lot of assets. So what you're acquiring is acquiring together, and you're not so cognizant and worried about what am I going to get and what's going to happen in the event of divorce. They really have a role in these second marriages and people that have acquired assets later on in life is related to that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, and especially if someone's gone through. I mean, I tell most of my clients that I've handled their divorce that if they get married again, to come and see me and at least discuss the possibility of a prenuptial agreement.
Exactly. And you find
if
that
it was, and we're not, is it something that is necessary and they need? At least know about. Again, I'm saying knowledge is power.
Of course.
So,
Absolutely.
and if you have things outlined in a contract, because then when a divorce case is filed and there's a prenuptial or a postnuptial agreement, that becomes part of the case. That's filed with the petition. There's a contract here that is going to be filed with the court that the party that wanted it signed is going to be signed to the court. We don't have to have all this other litigation on how we're dividing assets.
'Cause you already
I have
have
a
that.
valid prenuptial agreement here that needs to be upheld.
Okay. That makes, I'm guessing, your
Many
job a lot
times,
easier, too.
Well, it can be, but sometimes we're litigating the issue of whether or not the prenuptial agreement was validly executed. Was there fraud? Was there duress? Was it overreaching? Was there full financial disclosure?
I see.
Did the party understand?
Yeah.
So if there is a divorce that has a prenuptial, if you're litigating that issue first, whether the prenup is going to be upheld by the court, and if it is, which most of the times they are, okay, then you're going to go to the divorce issues,
Okay.
whatever were not addressed.
And that's an emotional thing going through a divorce, needless to say. So I'm guessing the easier people can make it on themselves by going into a prenup, it just makes sense.
It helps. It can help to resolve. They have their place. I'm not here saying everyone needs one. It's a personal.
Yeah.
It's a personal decision that can be discussed with the party or your attorney or your attorney.
All right. Okay. Well, that really gets us thinking, really thinking about that.
It's ask the questions, know the questions
Yes,
to ask.
Yeah. Okay. So what else do we have here that
Okay.
we're going to cover? I know we're going to be talking about just adulting in the last hour. And before we go on, I just want to let you guys know that you're watching Life and Law with Debora Diaz. And the one thing that we pride ourselves with Debora is her caring, compassionate, courageous, and availability. So if you know someone or you yourself might be going through some family changes and you want to talk to somebody that really cares, I would definitely recommend Debora. I've gotten to know her over the last couple of years, and doing this show I feel really honored to have you here and sharing things and really raising the awareness. There's going to be many future eye openers for all of us. So this is great.
We have an open slate here. That's why I have it Life and Law. We intend on educating the public and talking about things that are in the headlines related to the law and things that are going on in people's lives that are related to the law. And we hope to be answering your questions.
Exactly. If you ever want to call, you're able to do that, and we'll have that
And
number
we'll
for you.
tell them about our new Gmail. We have an email account, and that is Life and Law with Debora, LifeandLaw, with Debora, Debora, no H, at gmail.com. And send your questions, and we will be looking through those, and your question may be on the air.
And Deborah is also on Facebook too, and you've
Yes.
already received some comments in that. So
I appreciate your feedback and questions, and a call for topics.
Yeah.
We want this to be out there, that we're serving a need in the community, to be answering questions. So this is a call for topics and that you would like to see me address.
well, there's so many topics, and you turn on the news, read the newspaper, go on your phone, and just see what's going on out there. And it's always much better to be ahead of the game, and even have a little bit of knowledge, even though Deborah isn't, giving specific to you if you write or call, but some general advice to just get our brains thinking, and preparation.
Educating, knowing questions, knowing the questions to ask.
Yes, absolutely.
Hopefully being throwing out there some resources to go to.
Exactly. And we had a discussion at our chapter meeting just this past week, and it was interesting about the generations out there today, and the just adulting I cannot wait to talk about. So whenever you're ready to start on that talking point, it's pretty broad, like a lot of our topics that we're sharing on Life and Law.
For those of you that have access to your phones or tablets right now, you can go to the website justadulting.com, because that's what we will be talking about.
Exactly.
Or hashtag justadulting on Twitter, justadulting.com on the website.
I've heard that there's adulting classes now, how to be an adult and how to act as. I mean, I saw it on Facebook, and so when you told me about just adulting, there's a lot to this. It makes a lot of sense. When you turn 18, you need to know these things, especially today, right? Yeah, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
When we come back,
we're
going to see what adults need to know.
the high sign here.
Yeah, we'll be right back after this.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
And here we are back with Life and Law with Debora Diaz, and oh boy, we are just talking up a storm here. A lot to think about in this last segment here. I'm going to turn this over to Debora because I want to know all about what is just adulting.
Just adulting is what I'm referring to is a legal survival guide, and there's a little that's published by the Florida Bar as a public service, and it is available at justadulting.com, the Florida Bar website. It's also available as a free app to download in Google Play or the Apple Store. And what it does is outlines in very good and detailed terms the rights, responsibilities, and duties of what happens when a young person turns 18 years of age.
Okay.
Because you're 17 and then you turn 18.
It's like it flips. All of a sudden you're an adult.
Things happen at 18 under the law.
Yeah.
That would not, you're going to be treated differently in the criminal and in the criminal area and in other things. At 18, for example, you can excuse me, you can vote, but you can't drink legally in the state of Florida.
Okay.
Okay. And this app, and it's available as a guide too, so you can print it out, or as an app, outlines all the areas that are affected. Okay. So for example, one of the things, contract, the ability to contract. A 17-year-old cannot enter into a contract that will be upheld to purchase a car, to rent an apartment, to have a credit card. Okay, they're viewed as they're incapable of the ability to contract because they're a minor.
Okay.
Okay, so 18 though, think about what happens at 18. You might start getting credit cards. Okay, so now you're going to be enforced as an adult and affect your credit. Might apply for student loans. You'll be held to pay the student loans back. Very important to know what you're entering into with student loans. There is no forgiveness. They cannot be discharged in bankruptcy, so that what you're signing is you will be legally obligated to pay back at 18. So these are valid contracts. It's not one thing to think, oh, I was only 18 when I signed it. No, you are an adult at 18 years of age.
Yes.
Okay. There's other things, the drinking and driving. We have, there's an open container laws. Okay, so you're a minor, law might be a little bit less lenient. At 18, it's an adult. That means in a car, whether it's moving or stopped, there should be no open container for passenger or the driver.
Okay.
Okay, so that's major impact. Okay, fake IDs. It's a crime.
Oh
to
yeah.
have fake ID.
Yes.
Thing. You're using a fake ID.
Yes.
Okay, so
to get into the bars and all that.
Yes. Yes. So whether it's someone else's or whether it's something that's been made, by passing that, it could be prosecuted under the criminal laws as an adult. Okay. Renting an apartment, signing a lease at 18, you're responsible. You don't pay the rent, you can be evicted. You can be on the hook to pay the rent. So another related, it is the ability to contract. I want to make sure I'm covering some of the highlights here. Police encounters, it's guidelines on what to do if you're stopped by by law enforcement. Remaining calm, your hands where they're seen, and asking, and being polite. Things. What's nice about this, the app and the website, is that it's fluid.
Yes.
Every topic that's covered, you can link to and get more information. And anything that changes, if you have notifications on, it's going to be sent to you. So if the law changes, so it's constantly updated. It's how the younger, we have to say that now.
I know.
Younger people, younger than us,
exactly.
are
Their
interacting
communication
with social media.
Sure.
To be using on their phone, so you can have it right at your fingertips.
Well, that's good because it gives them that cutting edge on. I mean, that's a big adjustment going from 17 to 18. Where can you
It doesn't seem like, 17, 18. The other thing you can't do at 17, you can't get married unless one of your parents sign for you.
Right.
Okay, 18, you are legally competent to enter into a marriage. So that's the other.
Wow,
that's another, right?
That's scary at 18.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So the paternity issues, versus 17 or 18 are could be different. So there's just a whole gamut of issues that are affected, and can't emphasize enough that what you do early on in life can affect you later on in life.
That is so key. And you know where I'm going with this, especially when it comes to social media.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, people that are looking for a job, right?
Exactly, looking for a job.
And how it follows you.
Everything, yes. And one of the areas is, I'll use the example of law school. A lot of times, people, as you're young, you do things, and it's more of a lack of judgment, not being a bad person, okay? But if you are, they have a crime, let's say for a fake ID, that could be a disqualifier.
Sure.
For law school. You can go to law school. The law schools will take your money, okay? You can go ahead. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be admitted and pass the bar, pass the entrance committee.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
you have to have good moral character. Everything is, examined. They go back. I mean, the bar exam, not the bar exam, the bar history report on you goes back to when you were born till the present time of your application as to what you did. That's how extensive it is as far as. So many times they'll go to law school, and there's been cases in the news, they've had something, they're accepted, and so they think, well, I got accepted into law school, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Everything's going to be fine.
Well, they might have, if they have disqualifying reasons, it doesn't mean they're going to be admitted into a particular state to practice law.
so
They might have a Juris Doctorate degree, but they might not be a practicing lawyer.
Right,
Because they can't get admitted.
And so these are really just such solid
It's judgment issues,
Yes,
understanding
yes.
the ramifications. And then you
Absolutely.
started to talk about, as we talked, because this is one of my pet peeves that I'm always talking about when I speak to groups, is about the social media. People are posting way too much. And I mean
a lot of personal
things that
stuff.
should not be posted.
I agree.
And as you're young and as you're out there and partying, you don't think about it. But when you're holding up your drinks, okay, and showing that you're wasted at a beach party, when you go to apply for a job 2 years down the road, your employer will be looking at that.
Exactly.
Okay? So
Yes.
maybe that personality will fit within the realm of the job that the person's applying for, but maybe not. Employers are checking social media.
Yeah.
Okay, everything that's posted, they can, your Twitter accounts, your Facebook, Snapchat, whatever. I can't keep track of them.
I can't
all,
either. I'm still trying to tweet.
It's this ultimate, because we become a society where it is so easy to hide behind the computer and post something.
And go
so
off.
it really
Yes.
is, think about it. Think before you insult. Think before you post something. Would you want it read out loud?
Yeah, well, exactly, because I mean, you're making an impression on social media, and then other people are going to tag and repost it and share and everything.
And it's there. It's there forever.
It's there.
Everybody keeps telling me, ask and ask. It is there.
Yes, yes.
And we only have to look at the news to know about that. How many people, the celebrities, we know that there's all kinds of tapes and videos coming out later on that they did 15 years ago.
Right, exactly. And you know, mistakes
They weren't
and
thinking.
things.
I mean,
no,
maybe they were
weren't
20
thinking.
at the time, and now and the tape comes out.
I know, it's crazy.
So it really is think.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that we're able to share this, especially this app that you can
That's
get
why I
on
want to
your phone.
repeat it again. Yes.
Yes.
Just adulting. Hashtag just adulting. JUSTADULTING. Legal survival guide.
I think that's
For
fabulous.
turning 18. There's so much information on this website. I can't say enough about it, what the Florida Bar has done, that you can read about, that you can download infographics. This is really good for teachers, churches, schools. You can download posters to use. You can download teaching guides. You can download things to share with your children. I just happened to download this. It's like a 30-page. This is what the front looks like, because I wanted to have a hard copy. But you can, if you want a hard copy, you can download a hard copy.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of information on
Well, I'll tell you, this is a great way to close the show too. We have just about a minute remaining, but you know, that's what the show is all about. And go ahead and check this out, because this is going to be many eye openers for you if you're a parent or a grandparent. If there's an 18-year-old, up and coming 18-year-old.
This is a timely topic.
If I was raising
in
kids
May.
today, which I am indirectly with my grandson and all, I do have a granddaughter that just turned 18 last month. So
She
here
needs this guide.
We will be
She
sharing
needs this
this.
guide.
Absolutely, because imagine you understand this and you share it with the family, and that opens up the communication. Then you don't have to go with the what ifs. The answers are right here. And this is put out by the Florida Bar.
Yes, why reinvent? This is a great service by the Florida Bar. So use it. It's a great tool out there, great resource.
Great show, Debora, as always.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us. Oh,
And
next
don't-
week we're going to be talking about losing a spouse.
Yes.
And I know that's a touchy subject, but we're going to get
We're gonna
into
talk
that.
about some things
Exactly.
regarding that topic and some estate issues.
Things that can help you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us
Thanks.
today. See you next time.
Bye-bye.